"You're just jealous," Allura screamed, her voice echoing off the expensive marble tiles of the hotel powder room. Her hand tightened around my wrist, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. I stared at her, feeling a mix of pity and exhaustion. We were at the venue for our parents' 30th anniversary gala. Allura was wearing a $10,000 dress that her husband, Caspin, had worked overtime to pay for. Meanwhile, her phone was buzzing on the counter with a text from Xavian, the man she was sleeping with. "I'm not jealous, Allura," I said quietly, trying to pull my arm away. "I'm disgusted. Caspin adores you. He thinks you're an angel. And you're mocking him behind his back with a man who doesn't even know you're married." Allura laughed then, a cruel, sharp sound. She shoved me backward against the cold counter. "You are just a bitter little failure, Isaira. You lost your job, you have no boyfriend, and you live in a shoebox. I have the perfect life. I have the perfect husband. And I have the freedom to do whatever I want because I am special." She leaned in close, her breath smelling of expensive champagne. "Go ahead. Tell Mom and Dad. Tell Caspin. Nobody will believe the family failure over the golden girl. You are a shadow, Isaira. I am the sun." Allura was confident, but she was also careless. She thought because I was quiet, I was stupid. She forgot that I was the one who set up all her electronics because she didn't have time for tech. 3 days before the gala, I was at my parents' house helping my mother, Orlia, with her tablet. She wanted to sync her photo albums for the anniversary slideshow. I logged into the family's shared cloud account, the one I managed. "Isaira, make sure you get the photos from Allura's folder too," Mom had called from the kitchen. I clicked on Allura's subfolder. It was supposed to be for family vacation pics. Instead, I saw a new folder labeled private, do not open. It was the kind of challenge Allura thought would stop me, but I had the admin password. I opened it. My stomach dropped. There were hundreds of photos. Weekend trips to wineries, hotel room selfies, and screenshots of text messages. They weren't with Caspin. They were with a man named Xavian. Allura had set her phone to auto-backup everything, and in her arrogance, she hadn't realized that the secure family cloud was accessible by me. I didn't say a word to Mom. I simply copied the entire folder to my own hard drive and waited. I tried to give my parents a chance to see the truth on their own, but they were blinded by Allura's shine. The day before the party, my father, Joran, pulled me into his study. The room smelled of old paper and judgment. "Isaira," he started, his voice stern, "I want you to be on your best behavior tomorrow, no sulking." "I don't sulk, Dad," I said, feeling that familiar ache in my chest. "You have a dark cloud over you," Joran said, shaking his head. "Look at your sister. She's radiant. She's successful. She's the glue that holds this family together. Why can't you just be happy for her? Why can't you be more like Allura?" He looked at me with disappointment, the same look I had received my entire life. He didn't know that the glue was toxic. He didn't know his retirement fund was being drained by his favorite daughter. He just saw what he wanted to see. "I'll be on my best behavior, Dad," I promised. "I'm going to make sure the night is unforgettable." He nodded, dismissing me. The irony of his words felt like a physical weight in my chest. He wanted me to be like her. So I decided to play her game, but I would play it better. I needed more than just the old photos from the cloud. I needed something current to prove this was still happening. I knew Allura's schedule better than she knew it herself, because she constantly bragged about her spa days. I tracked her location using the Find My Friends feature she insisted we all share for safety. She wasn't at the spa. She was at the Grand Hotel downtown, the same hotel where Xavian worked as a consultant. I sat in the lobby, hidden behind a large potted palm. I felt like a spy in my own life. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from anger. Caspin was currently working double shifts at the hospital to fund Allura, lifestyle, thinking he was building a future for them. Then the elevator doors opened. Allura walked out, hanging off Xavian's arm. She kissed him right there in the lobby, not a care in the world. She looked happy, but it was a selfish happiness. I raised my phone. I zoomed in. Click. I took a single, high-resolution photo. It showed their faces clearly. It showed the date and time. It was the final nail in the coffin. I slipped out the side door before they noticed me, my heart breaking for the brother-in-law who deserved so much better. That evening, we had a pre-gala family dinner. The table was set with fine china, and Allura was holding court, telling a story about how she saved a charity event. Caspin looked at her with adoration. "So, Isira," Allura said, turning her gaze on me like a weapon. "Did you find a new job yet, or are you still living off savings?" "I'm looking," I said, cutting my steak. "Well, you better hurry," she said, taking a sip of wine. "I heard your credit score took a dive recently. You really need to be more responsible. It's embarrassing for Mom and Dad." The table went silent. My parents exchanged worried looks. "Is that true, Isira?" Mom asked. "Is your credit bad?" I looked at Allura. She smirked. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just an affair. I had received a weird rejection letter for a credit card I never applied for last month. Allura knew my score because she was the one destroying it. She had been using my identity to open secret accounts to hide her spending from Caspin. She wasn't just cheating on her husband. She was ruining me to cover her tracks. "Don't worry about my credit," I said calmly. "I'm handling it." The night of the anniversary gala arrived. The ballroom was filled with the city's elite. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and a jazz band played soft tunes. It was the kind of event my parents lived for, a display of perfect success. Allura was playing the doting wife perfectly. She fixed Caspin's tie, laughed at his jokes, and held his hand. To an outsider, they were the ideal couple. To me, it was a sickening performance. I stood near the dessert table, checking my phone. The folder was ready. I had named it The Truth. Allura swept past me, grabbing a glass of champagne. She leaned in, her voice a poisonous whisper. "I saw you looking at me during dinner," she hissed. "Don't try anything, Isira. I could destroy you with one phone call. I have friends in high places. You're just a jealous little girl. Stay in your lane or I'll run you off the road." She patted my cheek condescendingly and walked away, hips swaying. She thought she had won. She thought I was scared. She didn't realize that I wasn't in her lane anymore. I was waiting at the finish line with a demolition crew. The room quieted down as my father tapped his spoon against his glass. It was time for the toasts. Joran stood on the small stage, holding Orlia's hand. 30 years, he began, beaming. 30 years of love, trust, and family. We are so blessed." Everyone clapped. Allura stood in the front row, beaming up at them. This was it. I pulled out my phone. I opened the folder. I selected every photo, the hotel lobby kiss, the text messages calling Caspin boring, the bank transfers, the selfies in bed with Xavian. I hit share, then I tapped airdrop. Because we were at a family event, almost everyone had their receiving settings set to everyone or contacts only. And I was in everyone's contacts. I saw the icons pop up. Caspin's iPhone, Mom's iPad, Dad's phone, the projector laptop connected to the main screen. I took a deep breath and pressed send to all. Ding. Ding, ding. The sound rippled through the room like a wave. 20, 30, 40 distinct notification chimes rang out almost simultaneously. People reached into their pockets and purses, confused. I watched Caspin. He pulled his phone out, smiling, probably expecting a party photo. I saw his face freeze. The smile dropped. The color drained from his skin. He looked from the phone to Allura, his eyes wide with horror. "What is this?" Someone whispered loudly from the back of the room. Allura looked around, confused. "What's going on?" she asked, laughing nervously. "Why is everyone on their phones?" Then the main attraction happened. The laptop controlling the slideshow accepted the airdrop automatically because I had configured it to accept files from family. The beautiful slideshow of my parents' wedding photos vanished. In its place, a massive, high-definition photo appeared on the 20-foot screen behind the stage. It was Allura and Xavian. They were in a heated embrace, his hands clearly visible on her waist, her face buried in his neck. The gasps from the guests were louder than the music had been. It was a collective intake of breath that sucked the air out of the room. "Oh my God," my mother gasped, hand over her mouth. Allura turned around. She looked up at the giant screen. For the first time in her life, she didn't have a comeback. She stood frozen, the golden girl illuminated by the glowing evidence of her betrayal. The silence was broken only by the hum of the projector, broadcasting her shame to everyone she tried to impress. "Turn it off," Allura shrieked, snapping out of her shock. She lunged toward the laptop, but the files were already queued. The image changed. It was a screenshot of a text message. "Allura, Caspin is so needy. I can't wait to sneak away to the hotel tonight. He thinks I'm at a charity board meeting. LOL." "This is fake," Allura screamed, turning to the crowd. Her face was red, her eyes wild. "Isira did this. She's jealous. She made these. It's a deep fake. AI can do this now." She pointed a trembling finger at me. "She's trying to ruin me." Some guests looked uncertain. Deepfakes were real after all. But then the video played. I had included a video she sent to Xavian. It wasn't just an image, it had sound. Allura's voice boomed through the gala speakers. "Hey baby," the video Allura cooed, wearing a robe in a hotel room. "I just stole Caspin's credit card. I'm going to buy us that weekend trip to Cabo. He's such a pushover, he won't even check the statement." The audio killed her lie instantly. You couldn't fake that specific cadence, that arrogant laugh. Caspin stood up, his chair falling backward with a crash. Caspin didn't scream. He didn't yell. He walked up to Allura, looked her in the eye, and held up his phone showing the bank transfer screenshot. "A pushover," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Caspin, honey, listen." Allura tried to grab his arm. He flinched away from her touch as if she were made of fire. He turned around and walked out of the ballroom, leaving her standing alone in the center of the dance floor. The party ended abruptly. Guests grabbed their coats and fled, whispering excitedly. The humiliation was total. On the drive back to my parents' house, the silence was thick. I expected them to be angry at Allura. Instead, when we walked into the living room, Joran turned on me. "How could you?" he roared. "You destroyed this family. You humiliated your sister in front of everyone." "She humiliated herself, Dad," I said, standing my ground. "You could have come to us privately," Mom sobbed. "Why did you have to be so cruel? You're a family killer, Isira." I looked at them, realizing the truth. I wasn't just fighting Allura. I was fighting a cult of personality. They would rather protect the image of a perfect family than acknowledge the rot at the center of it. I left my parents' house that night and went straight to my apartment. I knew the war wasn't over. Allura would try to spin this. She would try to cut me off. I opened my laptop. I still had admin access to the family financial office software, a job I did for free because Dad didn't trust strangers with his money. I logged in. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I needed to secure the assets before Allura drained them to flee or hire a crisis PR team. I locked her out of the joint accounts. I changed the passwords to the investment portfolios. And then I started digging deeper. I found a transfer from 2 years ago. $50,000 moved from Mom's emergency health savings to an account labeled consulting fees. I traced the account. It didn't belong to a consultant. It was a shell account registered to Allura's maiden name. She had stolen $50,000 from our mother, who had a heart condition, to fund her wardrobe. I downloaded the statements. This wasn't just drama anymore. It was theft. I had the smoking gun that would turn my parents' blind loyalty into horror. At 2:00 a.m., my buzzer rang. It was Allura. I could see her on the lobby camera. Her mascara was smeared, and her expensive dress was torn at the hem. I buzzed her in, but I kept the chain on my door. I opened it a crack. "Let me in," she demanded. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded furious. "Go home, Allura," I said. "I can't go home," she screamed, pushing against the door. "Caspin changed the locks. This is all your fault." "You did this," I said calmly. "You need to fix it," she hissed, her eyes manic. "You're going to post a statement tomorrow. You're going to say it was a prank. You're going to say you hacked my phone and made those videos with AI. If you don't, I'll tell the police you stole that $50,000 from Mom's account. I'll frame you, Isira. I've done it before and I'll do it again. I stared at her. She was doubling down. She was threatening me with the very crime she committed. Good night, Allura, I said, and slammed the door shut. I locked the deadbolt as she screamed insults from the hallway. What Allura didn't know was that my shoebox apartment had a very smart security system. I had installed a high-quality camera in my doorbell and another one just inside the entryway. The entire conversation had been recorded. The video was crisp. The audio was crystal clear. I'll tell the police you stole that $50,000. I've done it before, and I'll do it again. She had just confessed to the theft and the framing in a single breath. She had handed me the evidence to clear my name and indict her. I saved the clip to 3 different hard drives. Then I emailed a copy to myself. Then I emailed a copy to Caspin. I sat on my floor, leaning against the door, listening to her pound on the wood until she finally gave up and left. She thought she was the predator, but she had just walked into the cage. 14. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Caspin. His voice sounded hollow, like he hadn't slept in days. Isira. I'm here, Caspin, I said softly. I got the video, he said. The one from your doorbell and the files you airdropped. I'm sorry I did it that way, I said. She wouldn't have let me speak otherwise. No, he interrupted. You saved me. I've been suspicious for months. Money was missing. She was always cold, but she made me feel crazy. She told me I was paranoid, seeing the proof. It broke my heart, but it saved my life. I have more, Caspin, I said. I found the bank accounts she opened in my name, and the ones she hid from you. I gave him the login credentials to the secret accounts I had uncovered the night before. Oh my God, he whispered as he clicked through the files. There's over $200,000 here. That's our house down payment. She stole it all. She's sick, Caspin, I said. We have to stop her. As the morning went on, I decided to investigate the failure label Allura loved to use against me. I had lost my job at a marketing firm 6 months ago. I was told it was due to confidentiality breaches, which never made sense to me. I called Bexley, my former boss. We had always had a good relationship until the day he fired me. Isira, why are you calling? Bexley asked, his tone icy. I need to know the truth, Bexley, I said. Did someone send you a tip about me? There was a long pause. Your sister called me, Bexley admitted. She sent me an email from an anonymous account, but she later confirmed it was her. She claimed you were selling client data to a competitor. She sent screenshots. I had to let you go. My blood ran cold. The screenshots must have been faked, just like the credit accounts. Bexley, Allura is a fraud, I said. She's currently being investigated for identity theft and embezzlement. She wanted me unemployed so I would have no resources to fight her. I sent him the link to the news article that had just gone live about the gala scandal. I can prove she lied, I said. She didn't just want my money, she wanted my career dead. I wasn't playing family games anymore. This was a legal war. I called Kyron, a top-tier attorney I had met at a networking event years ago. He was expensive, but I knew Caspin would help cover the costs now that he knew the truth. We met in his glass-walled office. I laid everything out. The affair, the identity theft, the stolen retirement funds, the recording of her threat, the sabotage of my job. Kyron looked through the documents, his eyebrows raising higher with every page. Isira, he said, taking off his glasses, this isn't just a civil dispute. This is felony fraud, multiple counts, identity theft, grand larceny, extortion. Can we win? I asked. Win, Kyron scoffed. We're going to bury her, but we need to move fast before she destroys evidence. We need to file for emergency injunctions and get the police involved regarding the identity theft. Do it, I said. I want my name back. The hardest part was facing my mother. I drove to my parents' house. Joran refused to come out of his study, but Mom was in the kitchen, crying over a cup of tea. "You ruined everything," she wept when she saw me. "Mom, look at this," I said firmly, placing the bank statements on the table. "I don't want to see." "Look," I commanded. It was the first time I had ever raised my voice at her. She looked. I pointed to the withdrawals. "See this date? May 12th. You were in the hospital because you couldn't afford the copay for your heart surgery. We had to take a loan. On that same day, Allura withdrew $5,000 from your account." I pulled up a photo from Allura's Instagram. "Look at the date. May 12th. She posted this new Chanel bag. She bought a purse with your heart medication money." Orlia stared at the paper. Her hand trembled. The denial began to crack. She looked at the numbers, then at the photo. The Golden Girl image finally shattered, replaced by the image of a vulture feeding on her own parents. She told me she was handling the bills," Mom whispered, her face pale. While the lawyers worked, I had one more mystery to solve. Xavian, was he a monster too? I tracked him down at the hotel. When I approached him in the lobby, he looked terrified. He had seen the gala photos online. "I didn't know," he blurted out before I could speak. "I swear." "You didn't know she was married?" I asked skeptically. "She told me she was a widow," Xavian cried. "She said she was a wealthy heiress and that Caspin was her crazy, stalker ex-brother-in-law who wouldn't leave her alone. She said I had to keep our relationship secret for her safety." My jaw dropped. The lies were so elaborate, so pathological. Allura had conned him too. She had played the victim to get his sympathy and his affection. "She used you, Xavian," I said, "just like she used all of us." He looked sick. "She put the hotel rooms on a credit card she said was hers. I thought she was rich." "That was my credit card," I said, "and you're going to help me prove it." Xavian agreed to testify. He was just another casualty of Allura's hurricane. The evidence from the bank was enough for Joran. My father finally emerged from his study, looking 10 years older. He had reviewed the files I left with Mom. Allura was staying in the family guest house because Caspin had kicked her out. She was refusing to leave, claiming she had squatter's rights. Joran walked out to the guest house. I followed him, along with Mom. Allura came to the door, looking smug. "Finally here to apologize." "You have 24 hours to leave," Joran said, his voice cold and hard. "What?" Allura laughed. "You can't kick me out. I'm your daughter." "You are a thief," Joran said. "You stole from your mother's medical fund. You stole Asira's identity. You destroyed this family." "I have rights," Allura screamed. "I'll sue you." "Go ahead," Joran said. "But the police will be here tomorrow to take a report on the missing money. If you are here, they will arrest you on the spot." Allura's face crumbled. The power dynamic had flipped. The king had finally dethroned the princess. A week later, Allura tried one last desperate move. There was a charity event she had been co-chairing. She showed up, dressed in her finest, acting as if nothing had happened. She thought she could brazen it out. I was there, representing my new consulting firm. When she saw me, she marched over, her eyes full of hate. "You turned them against me," she shrieked, raising her hand to slap me. I caught her wrist in midair. My grip was iron. I wasn't the scared little sister anymore. "No, Allura," I said, my voice steady. "I just turned on the lights." She struggled, but I held her fast. People were watching, whispering. "The shadow is gone," I told her, looking deep into her frantic eyes. "You're standing in the sun now and you're burning." I shoved her hand away. She stumbled back, gasping. For the first time, the crowd wasn't looking at her with admiration. They were looking at her with pity and disgust. The doors to the event hall opened. 2 uniformed officers walked in, followed by a detective. They weren't there for a noise complaint. They walked straight up to Allura. "Allura Vance?" the detective asked. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling. "We have a warrant for your arrest," he said loudly. "Charges include identity theft, bank fraud, and grand larceny." Allura looked around for Caspin. He wasn't there. She looked for Dad. He wasn't there. She looked at me. I stood still, watching. "This is a mistake," she screamed as they cuffed her hands behind her back. "My sister is setting me up. Tell them, Isira, tell them." I said nothing. I just took a sip of my sparkling water. They dragged her out, her heels scraping against the floor, creating a scene far more dramatic than the gala she had ruined. Justice had arrived, and it was wearing a badge. The fallout was swift. Joran called a meeting with the family attorney the next day. I was invited. Allura was not. "I am rewriting the trust," Joran said, his hands shaking slightly. "Allura is removed, completely. Any assets remaining in her name will be liquidated to pay back Caspin and Orlia." He looked at me across the desk. His eyes were wet. "I spent 30 years rewarding a monster," he said softly, "and I ignored the daughter who actually loved us. I am so sorry, Isira." "It's okay, Dad," I said, reaching for his hand. "It's not okay," he said, "but I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you." He signed the papers. The golden child was officially disinherited. The legacy she had killed to protect was gone. With my name cleared, things began to fall into place. Bexley called me back into his office. He had reviewed the evidence Chiron sent over. He looked ashamed. "I should have trusted you," Bexley said. "I let a lie cost me my best employee." "I accept your apology," I said, "but I don't want my old job back." "What do you want?" "I want the senior director position," I said, "and a 20% raise, and a public retraction of the accusations against me." Bexley didn't hesitate. "Done." I walked out of that office not as a victim, but as a victor. The jealousy Allura accused me of had turned into fuel. I was successful, independent, and strong, not because of who I married or who my parents preferred, but because of who I was. Caspin and I met for coffee a month later. He looked better. The bags under his eyes were fatting. He had finalized the divorce that morning. "She's still calling me from the facility," he said, stirring his coffee, "begging for bail money." "Did you answer?" I asked. "No," he smiled. "I blocked the number. I'm selling the house. It has too many bad memories. I'm going to travel for a while. Actually use the money I earn for myself." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Isira. You didn't just expose an affair. You saved me from a vampire. She would have drained me dry." "We're survivors, Caspin," I said. "We stick together." We remained close friends, bonded by the fire we had walked through. He was the brother I always wanted, and I was the sister who finally had his back. I stood on the balcony of my new apartment. It wasn't a shoebox. It was a penthouse with a view of the city skyline. I held a framed photo in my hand. It was an old picture of the family: Mom, Dad, Allura, and me. I looked at Allura's face in the photo. She was smiling that perfect, fake smile. She was currently in a state facility awaiting trial, unable to post bail because her assets were frozen and her family had turned their backs. I took the photo out of the frame. I didn't rip it. I just folded it, hiding Allura from view, leaving only my parents and me. I placed it back on the mantel. "You were right, Allura," I whispered to the empty air. "You did have the perfect life, but you forgot one thing." I looked out at the lights of the city, feeling a profound sense of peace. You can't build a kingdom on lies. Eventually the truth comes out, and the truth is undefeated. I turned back inside, pouring myself a glass of wine, finally ready to enjoy the life that was meant for me all along.